topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
What happened? Hey, we are back. I don't know what happened. This is a live show, and you just never know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, we just went blank. But we are back here. We're hoping that Lance Drury comes back with us. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if it was on our side or what, but anyhow, we are here. We are going to be talking tax relief today. And I am so excited with our guest that we have. He covers Missouri, Tennessee, and Texas, mainly concentrating on the San Antonio area. Juan, do you have us okay? I just want to make sure with our producer. Are you hearing us okay? There he is.
I'm back.
He's back. Lance, I was just telling people you cover Missouri, Tennessee, and you really concentrate in the San Antonio area. And maybe by next show, it's going to maybe have to be New Orleans also.
Well, who knows? But we also cover Southern Illinois, and we get people out of Kentucky. In fact, I had a guy hired me from Yonkers, New York, because he knew a guy that had come to me several years ago in Missouri, and he called, and we're working with him right now.
Well, I got to tell you, you had the greatest compliment. We had a gentleman contact us who's moving to the St. Louis, the Creve Coeur area, if you know where that is. He's moving to the Creve Coeur area. He found your show last month, and he said he was so excited after hearing you talk that he feels like if anybody can help him, you can. And he said, I got to tell you, I've felt so much pressure with the IRS. You hear this all the time. He said, but I really feel like Lance is going to be able to help me, and he's going to be contacting you. I thought that was such a nice compliment, Lance.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I really enjoy helping people out, giving them their life back. They're saving their businesses, saving their homes, making sure their wages aren't garnished, their bank account is not wiped out, saving their marriages, because this can be
Yes.
a very traumatic experience for people, and it tears families apart sometimes.
Lance, I don't think people actually realize you've got many, I would say, tricks in your bag. It's not just one cookie cutter fits all, that everybody is different and they might not be able to do offer and compromise, but you have other areas that you can help them in.
Oh, that yes, that's very true. And you're right. It's not a cookie cutter approach because everybody's financial situation is different. Everybody's income is different. Everybody's house payments different. Everybody's utilities are different. So every resolution that we provide for a client is tailor made to their particular situation. And then there's advice that we can give people so that they get a better deal out of Uncle Sam. I've had situations where people have second jobs. Well, the second job, every dime's going to Uncle Sam. So why work the second job? Or we advise them, go out and get a new car. I had a woman several years ago. She owed $40,000 plus to the IRS. We went through the financials 3 times, showed she could pay $600 a month. There was 4 years left on the statute of limitations for collection. So I called her up one day and I said, you need to go out and get a new car. She goes, they're going to let me get a new car when I owe them all this money? Said, you got a car with 200,000 miles. I set you up on $600 a month. The car is going to break down. You're going to pay the repair bill. There will be no money left over to pay the IRS. You wasted all your money in hiring me because the deal's going to go down the drain. So she went out, got a $500 a month car payment, paid $100 a month for 4 years. So over time, she paid less than $5,000 of that
Wow.
to the IRS.
Lance, I want people to know because I'm reading about it in the paper that there's 29,000 IRS agents that are taking early retirement. And Lance, you handle businesses also, not just personal. So you have a business. The last thing you want to do is stay on the phone for 2 or 3 hours
Right.
waiting on the IRS.
Yeah. And sometimes when you get them, they disconnect you. So I get people that hire me because they will spend 6, 8 hours trying to get through to the IRS and they can't get through, which is probably a good thing because they should not be talking directly to the IRS anyway.
Lance, I had a friend of mine who contacted one of these national companies that does your taxes for you and said, if the IRS comes after you, we'll be there for you. That's the biggest lie. They were not there for them. They screwed up and they're having to handle the IRS themselves now. So you hear these national commercials, and I got to tell you, some of the things they say in Lance are just crazy on how much they can get you out of when they don't even know what your situation is.
That's right. Anybody who tells you ahead of time what they can do for you is lying to you. They're just trying to get their money. I tell everybody there's 3 rules if you don't hire my law firm. Number 1, hire an attorney that does this every single day. Accountants are great with the numbers, but 90% of what they do is tax preparation. Every attorney in my office in Nashville, Los Angeles, Orlando, and Missouri has seen accountants give atrocious advice to their clients on how to deal with the IRS. Secondly, go local. And number 3, don't hire one of the big boys. There's a lot of scam artists out there. They just take your money and they don't do anything for you. And they never tell you what it's going to cost you up front. They just keep asking for more money every month.
I got to tell you, some of the emails we've been getting after your show, people really appreciate your honesty, how long you've been doing this for. And I got to tell you, I know you hear all kind of stories. There's a lot of people who try to handle this themselves, Lance, and you get those people who really mess things up more than help themselves. I bet you've got stories about that.
Oh, absolutely. I had a guy recently on his own, and he'd been dealing with them for 10 years. And he said he had
Wow.
4 revenue officers, and he owes 1.2 million to the IRS. And the third revenue officer said, "Oh, we won't garnish you. We won't do this." He then retired. Now he got an aggressive one, ignored the guy, and he's wiping everything out. He's got
Oh,
everything levied. And then he was supposed to come in with a check for us to handle it. Said, "Oh, my wife was supposed to do this." Now they've got his retirement. So now he's dug such a deep hole. I don't know that we could help him if he hired us now. You cannot mess around with what happens with these revenue officers. They will send out what's called a summary of taxpayer contact. It's Form 9297. And they're so confusing. They're so complicated to the average individual. People will come to me after they've submitted this. They'll say, "I don't know why he levied me. I gave him everything he requested." Well, they didn't give him everything that they had requested. And these revenue officers, they're not going to call up a layperson and say, "Hey, I need this, this, and this." It tells you at the bottom, if you don't send this in, one of the consequences is a levy. They just go ahead and levy, but they're not going to do that to my law firm. We'll call them up. We'll say, "Well, is there anything else you need?" So we could have prevented all of the levies that this guy has now incurred just because he thought he could do it on his own. And I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars are being tied up right now by the IRS in his case.
we just got our first text. This is from Marvin. Marvin is in Nashville. Once he said, "I just found your show on iHeart. This is like a breath of fresh air because this is such an important topic. Kudos to you for having an expert on the show. I want to know, I hear advertising about Fresh Start program. Is that for real?"
Well, there is a program. It's actually an initiative, the Fresh Start Initiative. But it's not like I can call him up and say, "Joe's a good guy, let's give him a fresh start," and the liability goes away. It still comes down. You have to prove to the IRS that you don't have the ability to pay. What that Fresh Start Initiative did, though, it made it easier for offers in compromise to be accepted. And it did some other things that made it better for the taxpayer. But it's nothing, Matt. People think, "Oh, I got to get into this Fresh Start program." It doesn't work that way. We still have to prove to the IRS you don't have the ability to pay it all back. And 85 to 90% of my clients never pay back the full amount. 10 to 15% never pay a dime. Those are mostly low income people or people who are now on a fixed income.
Lance, I see a lot of these national companies with the big ad budgets. Uh, I read the comments and people pay them and then they hardly ever get a call back from them. Tell me, I know how important customer service is to your firm.
It is. It's probably the most important thing that we do. We try to reach out even if nothing's going on with the IRS. And you have to understand, you submit stuff to the IRS and then you wait and you wait and you
Yes.
wait because they don't have enough people. I've never seen them in such bad straits in my 20 years of doing this. They are at rock bottom in terms of their service. So, we can't control that, but we can certainly control our part. So we try to reach out to each of our clients at least once every 30 days because we want them to stay informed and up to date on what we're doing for them with the IRS.
Well, I just, we try to stay away from politics as much as we can, but God, I just saw where Doge went into the IRS and they said their computers are so annotated and they cannot believe they've been operating on such old equipment.
I think that those computers are from the 1980s. And I got to tell you how I'm serious. I think they're from the 1980s. And I can tell you how bad it is. When you call them up to the automated collection system, let's say you're trying to get a resolution for your client. So you read the financial statement when you're on the telephone, and then they say, well, I need documentation for this or that. But what they'll do is they'll get certain amount of documentation. Then they'll tell you, we're going to put you on hold for 5 to 7 minutes. Well, that can happen 4 times during that phone call. So sometimes it takes an hour because their systems are so old and they run so slow that they just put you on hold while they're looking something up. And so one of the things that the new monies was supposed to do was to upgrade their computer systems. Now that may be down the drain. I don't know, because Trump's probably going to cut a lot about what Biden wanted to increase back. But, I'm not going to run out of work. I can tell you that. And so things are really picking up again. It's going to hurt the small firms. We got 16 people starting Monday. We'll have 16 employees in the firm, and that's probably going to grow to 20 to 25 in one of these years.
Well, we always start promoting your show about a week out. And, we just went through April 15th, the dreaded tax day, and people knew you were coming on. So we got so many emails from people, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised. People saying, I don't have the money to pay the IRS, or I haven't filed yet. What do I do? And I wanted to save those questions because I know you can tell people what they need to do.
Well, even if you don't have the money to pay the tax liability, you still need to send in the tax return timely or file an extension. But then you better send it in by the October 15th date. And here's why. There is a 5% per month failure to file penalty. That's 5% of the raw tax. For the first 5 months the tax return is late, it maxes out at 25%. So guess what? If you have a $10,000 tax liability and you don't send in the return, you've now added $2,500 more to your tax liability. And we haven't even talked about the failure to pay penalty or interest. So, I got a guy, he's going to hire me. And he said, oh, well, this is what I'm probably going to owe is about $100,000. I said, well, yeah, but you haven't filed the returns for these years. You got to add 25% of the raw tax. Now he figures he's going to owe $130,000.
Yes.
So that's the problem with not sending the return in. Send in the return, even if you can't pay it.
I'm going to tell people something, and I've learned this from doing the show with you. And by the way, I guess we've got a lot of business people listening. People want to know why you're not talking more about businesses. I tell you what, Lance, next month, I promise everybody we'll devote the entire show to businesses because there's so much to know, but we're getting a lot of people asking about business. So next month, I know you like talking about businesses when it comes to taxes.
Steve, that's important, and I'm glad to hear that because 70% or more of my clients are businesses. Those are the people who get in trouble because the taxes aren't automatically taken out like a W-2 employee. So we do a lot of work with small businesses.
That's where. So I promise everybody next month, and Lance does the last Friday of the month, and we also do the San Antonio show on Thursdays. We play that from our Friday show. So he actually has 2 shows a month with us. But Lance, I want to tell people something. It's so important that once they hire your firm, they no longer have to talk to the IRS anymore and take a chance of giving them the wrong information that could hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, well, in fact, we make it a condition of our continued representation that they not talk to the IRS, not only for the reason that you alluded to, but also then we don't know what's going on. And
Right.
so the client will say, well, the IRS told me this. So then when we get with the revenue officer, no, the revenue officer will say, I told him that. And so we can't argue with them because we're not privy to the conversation. So yeah,
But
that's a bad,
you
you
hear the
don't want,
stories. You hear the stories people said. I mean, it's when you have the IRS after you, it causes so much problem in your life, whether it's your with your spouse or your friends or your business. And just the fact that once they sign with you, you're relieving half of the pressure on them.
of course, yeah, we don't want them talking to them. And a lot of people say that we've lifted the weight of the world off their shoulders.
Yes.
They feel better after the initial consult. So many people say, I feel better already. And a lot of that is because then they know they don't have to deal with this. They've hired people who are trained to do this every single day.
I had someone just ask, do you go on audits with people?
We don't have the clients show up at an audit. We go ourselves.
Oh,
A lot of time you don't even have to go to the auditor. Some are letter audits that you can do by mail or whatever. But no, we do not have the client go to the audits.
and I tell you also, a lot of times when you get a letter from the IRS saying how much you owe, Lance, you're probably going to find out they probably really don't owe as much as the IRS is saying they owe.
Well, sometimes that's true, but sometimes we also find out the client will say, well, I owe $30,000 to the IRS. And when we get into their systems, guess what? They owe $80,000
80,000.
because they'll get a notice, but that notice is not always for every single year that they have liability. The government likes to create paper. You think they could go out, send one piece of paper with all the years of liability, and a lot of times they'll send a separate notice for each year. And then they'll send a separate notice for the wife as opposed to the husband. So they just love creating paper. And, there's no rhyme or reason to a lot of what they do. They're a bureaucracy. You never know when the IRS is going to issue the levy letters. Some people fall through the cracks for years and years. Some people get zapped as soon as the tax is assessed. So, that's what you're dealing with. And there's 26 million delinquent taxpayers.
Wow.
By the year 2032, there will be 35 million delinquent taxpayers.
Wow. That's amazing. Lance, this is when you know you've got a good show. Someone just wrote, your show is not long enough. It should be longer. Now you know you've got a great show. Tell people how they can reach your office.
Well, the phone numbers are at the bottom of the screen here, but you can go to lancedrurylaw.com and all of the telephone numbers, all of the contact, all of the addresses and the fax numbers are on that website. And you can just give us a call. I've got excellent people who do the intake. I certainly don't have the time to do the intake, but I've got a lot of wonderful legal assistants and everybody loves them. So just give us a call if you need some help.
Especially Erica, right?
Erica and Kyla and Lisa and Donna and Nicole and Joanna.
Lance, we are so lucky to have you, and we're sorry for the little glitch at the beginning, but this show will also be replayed next Thursday at uh, at 5 o'clock Eastern time for all of our folks in the San Antonio area. Lance, enjoy your trip to New Orleans. We love having you. You just make such a difference on our show, and we'll see you next month.
It's always a pleasure, Steve. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, my friend. That's
Uh-huh.
attorney Lance Drury. It's such an amazing law firm. If you've got any kind of tax problem, I'm telling, please give him a call. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.